Hi, my name is Dominic and I will be presenting a preliminary global market engagement strategy for WeWork. This will involve an assessment of WeWork's capacity to undertake such an endeavour, along with the merits of going through with it, before examining how the co-working multinational may leverage its resources to enter and succeed in China's crowded and competitive marketplace. In particular, the study will focus on WeWork's desire to appeal to Chinese rapidly growing middle class of entrepreneurs while seeking to bridge the cultural gap with Western clients which are demonstrating high levels of interest in regard to accessing the Chinese market. If you have any trouble viewing this, please refer to the notes provided in the PowerPoint presentation. Founded in 2010, WeWork's rapid growth and success in the 21st century has transformed it into a multinational corporation with a global impact. This profitable status stems from its specialization in providing and pioneering of physical and virtual shared workplaces to small and large enterprises, which has since expanded to include entrepreneurial support services in an endeavor to improve the collaborative nature of its workplaces. However, as with most organizations, their sustainability and coinciding extent of profitability is reliant on their ability to maintain and perpetuate a competitive advantage. This may be facilitated in a number of ways, one of which, topic of this presentation, is to access a new market. The envisioned outcome of which is to ultimately increase the business's customer base. Specifically, considering China's notable wealth and huge population size, WeWork is contemplating whether it should invest and expand its offerings to China. Thus, the Chinese market is of particular interest to WeWork's high growth aspirations. Prior to expanding its operations overseas, WeWork must first ascertain whether its current business model and resources are capable of being leveraged and applied to a new market. Specifically, internationalization is an expensive and risky endeavor, and thus such a course of action should be reasonably justified before WeWork is to proceed any further. Per Alexander and Corin, there are three key questions, each with their own sub-questions, which should be examined in the course of conducting a going global self-assessment. First is what are the potentials for WeWork? Here, the major prospective benefits of interest include a significantly larger customer base, China being home to over 1.36 billion people, a rapidly rising GDP growth rate, and soaring household incomes, which means China not only has a large population in which to appeal to, but also one that can afford more, with 300 million people in China now considered middle class. These collectively are world-leading in terms of their growth rate. Thus, it is not surprising that WeWork has a demonstrated interest in accessing the Chinese market, both for its current and future benefits, as capturing even a small percentage of it represents a larger number of customers than many other countries individually possess. In turning to WeWork's own capacity to manage the huge task of entering an overseas market, there are two particular factors that weigh positively in its favour. Specifically, one is its extensive history of overseas expansion, which provides WeWork with appreciation and understanding of its complexity, and will likely make WeWork even more unnecessarily careful, considering China is very different from the predominantly Western countries that WeWork has opened offices in. And two, its business model is currently highly profitable despite the loans it has taken out to facilitate its high growth strategy, enabling WeWork to independently support its expansion activities as opposed to solely or majorly relying on loans that can negatively impact its operations on a global scale. Regarding this third question, the answer depends on the resources and time WeWork will be required to expend in accessing the market to a profitable degree. While the potential profitability of the market itself is largely uncontested due to its scale and wealth, the company must account for the political landscape, which may be a major barrier, particularly considering the Chinese government's policy is centered on prioritizing homegrown companies over foreign-owned corporations like WeWork. Thus, assuming WeWork is able to successfully navigate the political considerations, the costs associated with its market entry are likely to be less than the potential profits due to its familiarity with overseas expansion and capacity to fund such a major undertaking. On the assumption that the previous findings are valid, it is then necessary for WeWork to define the value it seeks to obtain in entering and succeeding in the new market. This may be observed in the following vision and mission statements, followed by the overarching objectives which underpin them. The mission being to empower China's entrepreneurial community, assisting it to achieve its aspirations for a better future. And the objectives being to establish itself as a reliable competitor in the market, to be the leading co-working organization in China, and to be completely financially sustainable. It being envisioned that these will take 2 years, 5 years, and 8 years, respectively, to achieve. In turning to the environmental assessment, i.e. determining whether the current internal and external conditions of WeWork are compatible with its desired expansion plans, there are 4 particular considerations that the company must account for. The first is the political landscape. Namely, conducting business in China requires an entrepreneur to demonstrate a high degree of respect for the political landscape, which may appear particularly odd compared to the relatively relaxed environment experienced in Western nations. Without understanding of the more economically and technically focused government, due to the majority of their politicians possessing engineering backgrounds as opposed to the primarily law-based backgrounds of their Western counterparts, a business will quickly find it will encounter regulatory trouble. This involves not only understanding the regulatory framework, as with all countries, but also the ideological mentality of communism that has influenced the government's lack of tolerance for criticism. Secondly, China's urban population is a highly tech-savvy one. Thirdly, it is also important to be aware of the significantly crowded and competitive marketplace. Specifically, while there are many opportunities due to China's market size, it is nevertheless highly difficult to break into due to many other domestic and foreign companies alike with the same plan. Thus, WeWork should also contemplate not just looking to Shanghai and Beijing, which are high-tier cities, as entry points into the market, but to also consider other less populated cities, i.e. low-tier cities, which are nevertheless significantly larger than Melbourne and Sydney, and that are likely to be less competitive as a result. And fourthly, as alluded to in the previous point, there's a high level of interest in China's market. Although in this case it may benefit WeWork since more competitors seeking to engage in the Chinese marketplace also means more companies are seeking co-working spaces, and thus a larger source of customers that WeWork may appeal to. Now, in regard to how WeWork may go about entering the market to maximize its chances of integrating itself within it, there are some key strategies that are proposed. They include the acquisition of domestic competitors, such as acquiring Naked Hub, a Chinese-owned co-working competitor, the cultural alignment of services, i.e. incorporating Mandarin and Feng Shui practices and the development of its co-working offices. The strategic alliances may also be helpful. For example, leveraging the local and international sector. Furthermore, engaging with the local government, ensuring the company's practices respect governmental policies, and leveraging the interests of its established customer base, i.e. focusing on multinational companies seeking to enter the Chinese market, as they may assist with navigating and leveraging the inherent hurdles involved in expanding into the Chinese market. Now, in appealing to a global audience, while also tailoring its marketing to specific regions when relevant, WeWork will focus communicating its messages via Facebook, although this is less pertinent since Facebook is banned in China, WeChat, which is the leading social media platform in China, Instagram, which possesses the most engaged users of any social media network due to its comparably minimalist interface and feed, and LinkedIn, which is particularly useful for appealing to corporates and entrepreneurs alike, whether it is in regards to local companies and entrepreneurs in need of co-working spaces, or international companies and entrepreneurs seeking to expand their offerings into China by opening an office in the region. these channels will operate alongside word-of-mouth marketing, as in reality, the two, i.e. digital and traditional marketing channels, rarely operate in exclusion of each other. The word-of-mouth marketing, besides casual conversations that spread the word, will be generated by acquiring support from government officials, press releases, and collaborations with domestic companies. In turning to the main departments within WeWork that would be impacted, there are mainly two. First is the finance department, as assessing and securing the financial resources will be a rigorous and lengthy endeavour, which will involve plenty of market research and valuation assessments. And secondly, there's the sales department. They will need to reconsider their marketing approaches, as they are used to Western preferences, and although they have some familiarity with marketing to Asia, China is itself different from its neighbours and thus will require a tailored approach. This is even more important when considering the political environment in China is much more controlled and regulated than most. In concluding, it is recommended that WeWork enter the Chinese market. This is particularly due to the significant potential to be earned by accessing the wealthy and highly populated Chinese market, which is only set to continue rapidly growing, particularly as the population and wealth are predicted to maintain their upward trajectory, which will combine to provide many profitable opportunities for domestic and international businesses alike, both now and in the future. However, while China is an important market due to its wealth and scale, WeWork must be careful in respect of how it enters and interacts with the market. In particular, the political landscape is of significant importance, and so too is understanding the cultural differences and adapting WeWork's business model and services accordingly.